the Rachel Zegler controversy will hurt the live-action Snow White box office, or will it still make an absurd amount of money? Well, I mean, first off, I would say I don't think I would accept part of the premise of the question, which is to say that it was built in, well, this movie was going to make an absurd amount of money until Rachel Zegler started making very strange statements about the Snow White classic original. I don't think that's a built-in assumption that you can just, right, I mean, it's going to make an absurd amount of money, right? I don't think that's the case at all. They've done quite a few of these live-action remakes, and a number of them have made over $1 billion. But most of those ones that made over $1 billion were movies from the Disney Renaissance and movies that came out 4 years ago, or more. So Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Disney Renaissance movies pre-COVID. And so what you're talking about there is where you have this cross-generational situation where the modern generation of parents, me, we were raised on the Disney Renaissance. Those are the movies of my childhood. And now I have 3 children that are the target age for those movies. So it's cross-generational. It's nostalgia for me, but it's movies I can take my kids to. So it's special. That's what those movies are. But then they put out other ones like Dumbo. It's a classic. Didn't make nearly as much money because it's not quite the same thing. It doesn't translate quite as well. It's not quite as modern day $1 billion cinematic. So it didn't do very well despite Tim Burton directing it. And then they put a ton of them on Disney Plus and kind of just had that brand dilution that Bob Iger has talked about, where there's just too many of them. The novelty of a Disney live action remake has dwindled. So I think you have some of that going on. So the starting point of, would it make an absurd amount of money? I think that was always in question. Because Snow White, it's a classic film, but I don't know that it's quite in that same category of like, Snow White! Wow! I got to go rush out to go see that in live action. I don't think it's quite in that category. In the same way that Lion King and Aladdin, I think, were. And I don't think the straight translates in a way that it's quite as just big and cinematic, billion-dollar-y. First off that. Second one, I think the movie also had a number of things, another just odd choices that they've made that make you kind of look at it and go, I don't know if this thing's going to work. Some of these statements that they've made, the casting choices, their reinterpretation, this doesn't seem like these don't seem like great ideas. And then after all of that, you get to the star of the movie calling Prince Charming a creep. And that's weird. That's weird. And saying it's dated.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937. I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
The reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power.
And it's not that everything she's saying is just wrong. There's truths to what she's saying. Of course, if you adapt a movie now versus 85 years ago, you're going to make it for modern day audiences versus audiences from back then. So of course there's going to be some changes. There's a way to say that's respectful and comes off like, wow, this is an incredible thing that it's our responsibility to capture the magic of the original feature-length animated film. And you have a reverence for it. And you say, so we're making it and we're trying to capture that magic for modern day audiences and what that looks like now. That's not the flavor of it. The flavor of what she said was like, freaking weirdos back 85 years ago. They're so primitive. They're not advanced. We have better ideas now. Right? And 85 years from now, they'll be more advanced than us. Sure, that's history. We're figuring things out as we go along. And if you're 20 years old, you don't have the life experience. You don't have the resume to stick up your nose and just look down on a classic. You have no standing to do that. And so you just come off ridiculous. So when you have someone looking down on the movie that they're getting to star in, the source material for the, like, you're borrowing its fame as the reason to make it, but also being like, this freaking thing, we're gonna fix this just, it's a terrible idea. It's like violating the entire existence of the film if you have that much contempt for it. Disney's kind of been doing this all along. I mean, they had Emma Watson say similar things about Belle, like, well, our Belle's actually a strong woman that makes her own choices. Like, right, have you seen the animated movie? Yeah, you're not inventing that. That was happening back then too. So I think they've made some bad choices all along, and her statements only make it much worse. So I think they should be very worried about this project. I think it is probably going to suffer for all the reasons. Even The Little Mermaid, that is based off of a Renaissance film, so that same category of movies, which Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King made over $1 billion. It's in that category, and it only made $500 million. It made half, or a third in the case of The Lion King. It made much less money. I think some of that's the brand dilution. Some of that is just people being annoyed with Disney and their shenanigans and just messing with things there's no reason to mess with. And this is the one where the lead actress is just so boldly, like, poking the bee's nest, like, antagonizing fans of the target audience of the film. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know what they're thinking. If they're even have a small amount of common sense, they're like pulling her aside, like, hey, maybe stop and think about what you're saying. Hey, maybe find a way to say these ideas in a way that feels inclusive rather than off-putting. That feels like you're like, yeah, like we're making this movie to capture, like, pull people in. Don't push them away. Don't stick up your nose at the people that we want to buy tickets. Like, maybe learn how to talk about these things in a way that's less condescending and makes you feel like one of the people that's excited for this thing rather than someone that's contemptful of it. But yeah, yikes. Yeah, she made some crazy, crazy statements. Most of these clips are pulled from my Patreon live streams. I do about 6 live streams every single month. For $2 per month, $20 per year, you can get access to all the exclusive videos and live streams. For $5 per month, you get your name on my end card. At the top tier, you get a 30-minute video chat with me each month. The link down below in the description has more information.